I'm Pastor Sarah Rugenstone. If you're new to our channel or just haven't done so yet, be sure to click subscribe. Also, turn on your notifications. We have a new message that drops every week, and we also have those available to stream on demand throughout the week as well. We also have content that will help you grow in your faith journey, so don't miss out on any of it. Be sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications. We also have several links that will help you get further connected here at the gathering. We have a link that's going to help you just learn more about our church, and we also have a link for you to give, and then we also have a link to our Connect card, and that Connect card just helps us know that you were here, and it's a great way for us to be able to reach out and get you further connected in this community. We are closing up our series, We Just Click, and today we're talking all about friendship, and I think, personally, you guys are gonna love what I have to say about it. So, if it means a lot to you as well, be sure to share it with your friends and invite somebody to watch it with you. I'm really glad you're here, and have a great week. Hey y'all, I'm Sarah Rugenstone, the Clayton site pastor. Thank you so much for being here with us to worship in this way. I wanted to see, do you remember when you were little, like really little, and pretty much all it took to make a friend was to ask to play the same game as them? Well, when I was in first grade, this was my go-to friend-making technique, okay? Hop on the swings, and whoever hopped on next to me, I'd ask them two questions. First, do you want to be friends? And then my second, more hard-hitting question, do you believe in God? I grew up in the Bible Belt, so it was a pretty safe bet that the kid would say yes, okay? But one day, I asked a girl to be my friend. She said yes, and then I asked, do you believe in God? As one does. And she said no. That stumped me. I had not had that answer yet. And I said, oh, okay. And then we kept swinging. And she was one of my best friends until she transferred to a different high school later on. And so a year ago, here in St. Louis, I tried to make friends how I did when I was a kid by just asking someone, hey, do you want to be my friend? I dropped the second question as an adult. I think it would maybe hit a little different now as a pastor if I started convos this way, a little aggressive. So I told this person, hey, you're cool. Can we be friends? And then I planned to hang out, and after we hung out, she never talked to me again. And so, it's a give and take, okay? That's the way the cookie crumbles. You just dust off the perceived rejection, and you got to get back out there. But we've been in the midst of a series called We Just Click, and it's all about relationships and how to build strong ones. Last week, we talked about singleness and dating and how our romantic relationships or lack thereof are not what define us. This week, we're going to chat about friendship. Remember that song from SpongeBob? F is for friends who do stuff together. U is for you and me. N is for anywhere, anytime at all. Down here in the deep blue sea. Okay, like I said, it can be hard to make and keep friends. A lot of people at all stages struggle to find connection, depth, authenticity, and loyalty from their friendships. While the Bible doesn't offer us an exact checklist on how to be a good friend or where to find them, it does provide valuable perspective, insight, and information into relationship dynamics. Jesus provides us with examples of how to treat those closest to us and how to navigate challenging friendship dynamics because, bless them and keep them, the disciples give Jesus a lot of teaching moments. It is, after all, a miracle that he had 12 close friends in his 30s. Now, to be clear, I found that joke online. I can't claim to have made that, be the first one to have made that joke. But before we dive into examples from Scripture, let's unpack why friendship can be so challenging in this day and age first. In a time where modern technology and social media promises to connect us and draw us closer and make us friends, then why are we facing an epidemic of loneliness? According to one study done by Harvard, people between ages 30 and 44 years are the loneliest age group. And 29% of people in this age range say they were frequently or always lonely. The study goes on to say what some of the causes of loneliness are. with 73% of those surveyed saying technology contributed to loneliness in the country. While 66% said it was insufficient time with family, 60% of the people surveyed said that they were overworked or too busy or tired, while 60% of people related mental health challenges that harm relationship with others, with 58% surveyed saying they live in a society that's too individualistic. And what I found really interesting was 50% of folks surveyed listed having no religious or spiritual life as a cause of loneliness too. People are lacking connectedness, closeness, and friendship more than ever in an age that promises connection. In the Gospel of John, Jesus is teaching about how we should be more connected to one another and strengthened by each other, and how that without anchoring to Christ, we will not be able to thrive as we were meant to. Receive these words from John 15. I am the true vine, and God is the vineyard keeper. God removes any of my branches that don't produce fruit, and God trims any branch that produces fruit so that it will produce even more fruit. You are already trimmed because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. A branch can't produce fruit by itself, but must remain in the vine. Likewise, you can't produce fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, and you are the branches. Have you all seen grapevines? They're gnarly. They're all tangled up in each other. Look at these. They're all tangled up. You can't tell which branch started where, which leaf goes on which vine. It's a complex system of stems, vines, branches, fruit, leaves, and roots. And Jesus didn't use imagery of plants that shoot straight up and don't depend on one another's growth. He chose vines in a vineyard, something deeply interwoven and intertwined, because Jesus loves him some symbolism. We are called to be tangled up and woven together, all connected to the true vine. Relationship with other people often requires us to be wrapped up, intertwined, and connected to those around us. And that sometimes, that tangled up and gnarly mess can be a lot like those vines. The beauty of the vines, though, is that they literally lift each other up. They hold and support other vines, protect the fruit with the leaves and the tangle of branches. Jesus also says that God will prune whatever isn't serving us. And what's lovely about this pruning is it's not uprooting, it's not killing. Pruning means to cut back. It improves the overall plant's health and growth. So it's not trying to feed something that's dead already. God prunes for us so we don't have to take someone else's healing into our own hands. When something becomes damaging to your growth, your flourishing, God will help you realize a pruning is coming. Something's about to get clipped with pruning shears. Are your friends helping you to be your best you? Inspiring you to live a more Christ-centric life? And you them? Are you protecting one another, supporting each other, uplifting each other, and helping each other grow? Receive these words from John 15. As God loved me, I too loved you. Remain in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I kept God's commandments and remain in God's love. I have said these things to you so that my joy will be in you and your joy will be complete. This is my commandment. Love each other just as I have loved you. No one has greater love than to give up one's life for one's friends. To give up one's life. This can mean giving up a life of individualism, a life of selfishness, a life of pride, a life of greed, a life of only solitude, because being in community, friendship with people requires us to not center ourselves. There is no one branch on the vine that is more important than the other. They all have a purpose to support one another's flourishing and growth. Friendship allows us to both support each other and be supported by others. The disciples and their interactions with Jesus offer us more insight on how friends can show up and how sometimes we show up as friends. Sometimes the disciples are great friends and sometimes they're not. It's often a both and. Two things can be true. These are not conclusive or comprehensive categories. I'm just categorizing so it's a little bit easier to follow. They are dynamic people like us. And like the disciples, I think we too will be able to see ourselves on either side of the coin in these analogies. Our friends of Jesus. First, we have the snitch, the betrayer. You get 12 guesses on which disciple this is. Spoiler alert, it's Judas. Okay? Here's the thing, though, about Judas. He was a great follower of Christ. Even though it got a little dicey there at the end, he was passionate, an advocate, and had a very specific interpretation of how he expected Christ to show up. And when Christ didn't show up how Judas wanted, Judas betrayed him with a kiss. The whole betrayal scene outside of the garden is messy, intimate, and painful. Judas was treating this like a transactional friendship, though. Judas would follow Christ in the hopes that Christ would give Judas what he wanted. And Jesus didn't. And that kind of transactional relationship is not an authentic friendship. Perhaps you had a friend who wanted you to show up differently than you do. Maybe they wanted you to be something for them that you couldn't, and when you fell short of their ideals that they'd put on you, they reacted by betraying your friendship. Or maybe, like Judas, you held incorrect expectations of someone, and when they let you down, you felt hurt and lashed out in a way that damaged the friendship. Often, when we're betrayed by someone, we feel the need to react, come back with that eye for an eye justice. That's not God's justice, though. God's justice looks a little bit different. Jesus broke bread, passed the cup, and he didn't say, skip Judas. Jesus offered grace even when faced with the ultimate betrayal. And I am so grateful that we love a God who holds us with divine love, love in a way we could never fathom, a love that truly cannot be broken or cut no matter how deep the wound. It gives me hope for when I mess up, that God's love will still be there. The bread and the cup of life will still come my way. The true vine will always bring life back into me. So even when we, the disciples, make it difficult for God to love them, God continues to show love. Jesus continuing to break bread with the disciples shows the capacity of the divine love of God. It's crucial to note, though, that we don't hold the same capacity with our love as humans, which is why setting boundaries with friends and family is so important. Boundaries allow us to have the capacity to continue to love when we are able and step back when necessary in order to continue to be able to love in a healthy way that doesn't erode our spirits. Even though we can be betrayed or betray others, we need to be constantly recentering ourselves around the true vine, and God will help us know what to prune. It's an act of friendship and love to help others flourish and grow into their fullest selves, free of your own expectations of how that's supposed to look. We also have examples of the ghoster and the hater, okay? That's going to be the denier and the doubter. You probably guessed it. The ghoster, the denier, it's Peter. Bless his heart. And we need to give Peter some credit where credit is due. This guy loved Jesus, and Jesus loved him. He has jump out of the boat to follow Jesus energy. Literally, he does that like 3 times. Classic. That guy loves threes. But unfortunately, in the moments where it really, really mattered, Peter was not there for Jesus. He actually pretended like he didn't know him. And we like to give Peter a hard time, but often we are Peter, protecting ourselves while denying others. Maybe a friend has dropped you when things got rough, leaving you with no inkling of where they are or why they left. And that's a painful thing to experience when we are people of connection and someone just stops connecting with you. Yet Christ shows us that true friendship is loving one another even in the darkest times, even when it's riskiest and hard. And we also have the haters, the doubters like Thomas. And again, let's have some grace for Thomas. He's just skeptical. He's just wondering and a little curious. But it takes him literally putting his hands in Jesus's fresh wounds, gross, for Thomas to believe Jesus is who he said he was. Have you had people in your life who don't believe you when you tell them exactly who you are? People who are supposed to know you, love you, and they look you in the eye and say, I don't think you are who you say you are. That cuts deep. Yet, God knows who you are, just as God knew who Jesus is. And we see another example of divine love when Jesus offers his wounds for Thomas to touch. Thomas the seeker, the one who wants proof, who has to understand before he can believe. Jesus knows this and meets Thomas where Thomas is at. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. I urge you not to be someone who forces others to show you their wounds in order to believe them. It's an act of vulnerability to share hurt with someone. So if someone wants and chooses to share their wounds with you, hold them gently with care. You are not owed their wounds. If someone has trusted you enough to show that to you, hold it tenderly. It's an act of friendship and love to truly know someone, like how God knows Jesus is God's son, and how Jesus knows Thomas is a seeker. And speaking of our acts of friendship, last but certainly not least, we have our friendship example of the ride or die. That's right, the supporter. This is Mary Magdalene. Y'all, we do not always give this woman enough credit. She never left Jesus, literally. And it was actually pretty dangerous for her, a woman in a heavily patriarchal society, to follow and travel as an unmarried woman. Yet Mary was at the Last Supper and prepared Jesus for what was to come. She anointed his feet while the ghosters, snitches, and haters scoffed. She was at the foot of the cross while the crowds and the soldiers mocked and tortured Jesus. And that was risky for her to do. Showing up for people can be risky, and yet it's crucial to connections and flourishing. Mary even showed up at Jesus' graveside, tending to his resting place when she met him again, resurrected, a gardener calling her by name. Remember when Jesus said, "Love each other as I have loved you"? No one has greater love than to give up one's life for one's friends. Mary Magdalene is doing that. She's loving Christ just as he loved her. She's reflecting back the love of God that God showed her. She is a strong, steady, supportive branch woven in this vineyard we're all in, that Christ very much leans upon throughout his ministry, right up to his death and resurrection. Mary refuses to be absent when her friend needed her most. In the darkest hours of Jesus' life, it was Mary who never left his side. It is an act of friendship and love to be present in your relationships. And I pray that we can all be a friend like Mary, reflecting the love God gave us onto our friends. I fall short in friendships all the time, no doubt. I get tunnel vision. I forget to respond to texts. I put my foot in my mouth. I forget important dates. We're not going to be perfect friends. And while we've all been on the receiving end of the snitches, the haters, the ghosters at some point or another, we are also, on occasion, the ones who betray, doubt, and deny our friends. It's easy to get tangled up in branches that aren't promoting our growth, or be a lone branch not wanting to get in all that mess. I get it. It's risky to be in the vineyard. It's risky to be a friend who shows up, supports, uplifts, because it requires vulnerability and love, and those are risky things to give. Yet the vineyard cannot be a vineyard without the tangled up mess of the branches. The vine cannot be a vine if there are no fruits, no branches, no roots. And now more than ever, we need connection, we need friendship, we need solidarity, we need branches that uplift. Because there's a lot of evil out there trying to take connection and community away from us. May you remember that you have a place in the vineyard with a gardener that knows you by name and calls you into the tangled up mess of branches where the fruits of community, connection, love, hope, and peace are never ceasing. Amen.